I'm writing my master's thesis on Project 2025. Here's the history of it that you should know. Now, before I begin, this will be broken up into different parts, so make sure you like and follow. Reminder that Project 2025 is just the nickname of the document Mandate for Leadership, which has been rewritten repeatedly since the 80s for every presidential election as a conservative Christian policy written by the religious right headed by Heritage Foundation. Project 2025 is just a nickname. There have been many nicknames for this document. The document you need to remember is Mandate for Leadership. We're going to be talking about early religious right movement until Reagan. And then in the next video, we'll talk about Reagan, post-Reagan, and then we'll get to modern day. In the early 1900s, conservative evangelical Christians wanted nothing to do with society or urban areas. They left the cities, started their own communities. That's why you even see like conservative Christian seminaries seemingly out in the middle of nowhere. They wanted nothing to do with society. They thought society was broken. And this was fine up until the Scopes trial of 1921. And that Scopes trial came down to creationism versus evolution being taught in public schools in Tennessee. And this decision upset them even more. They thought that the US government was trying to tell them what they could and could not teach in their schools. And so they huddled down and rejected society even more. This was going on, this sort of isolationism, until the 1960s. Now, of course, we know the 1960s was the Civil Rights Act, and with the Civil Rights Act was integration, the desegregation of schools and the integration of all people regardless of skin color. And the Christian private schools didn't like that. They didn't want to be told by the US government that they had to integrate, and the US Supreme Court in 1971 said, too bad, you can't have your tax exempt status if you don't integrate. So what is clearly based on racism, they spin into the US government is attacking Christianity. So not only is secular society attacking Christianity by not allowing them to teach creationism in public schools, but the US government is attacking Christianity by not allowing private Christian schools to remain segregated. They will try to tell you that this has something to do with the Roe v. Wade decision. It doesn't. Christianity Today, Southern Baptist Conference, the Methodists, and other Protestant denominations had official statements supporting the Roe v. Wade decision and said that the issue with abortion is a Catholic problem. It has nothing to do with Protestants, and Protestants stand by Roe v. Wade. But after the 1971 Supreme Court decision about the tax-exempt status of the private Christian schools, they needed a second issue to rally around. They needed to grow the movement. So they thought that they could go after homosexuality. Homosexuality, though, was becoming more and more mainstream in the 70s and 80s with musicians and Hollywood, and it was becoming a harder battle to take on. So they went after fringe communities that opposed Roe v. Wade. So throughout the 70s, as they were expanding the religious side of their movement, they knew they also needed to have an injunction of money. So they went to other wealthy Southern folk, particularly in the oil industry, and said, hey, I know that you hate the US government for all the environmental rights that they're slapping on you from all the EPA regulations in the 1960s. Why don't you join forces with us? And by the way, how do you feel about race, right? That is where we start to see the religious right morally join forces with people who are conservative fiscally, right? And they thought that they had a hero in Jimmy Carter because he was a Southern boy. He was from Georgia. He was a Sunday school teacher for his Southern Baptist church. And Jimmy Carter was like, no, faith is extremely personal. We're not going to have the government mandate anything like that. There should be no prayer in school, no creationism in public schools. And the Supreme Court standing on the IRS tax exempt status of the schools that don't desegregate, stands. So they called him amoral. And so they started looking for someone else who they could pitch their policy. And lo and behold, they found Ronald Reagan. And despite Ronald Reagan as governor of California overseeing one of the most liberal abortion policies in the country, he took their script, he took their money, and the rest is history.